Mr Speaker.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, I'm absolutely delighted to have an opportunity to contribute to this debate. I believe it's one of the more important matters that this House has had the opportunity to address itself to, the very much more important for all New Zealanders because of the far-reaching implications of the recent revelations about the United States security agencies, of the PRISM and National Security Agency capabilities, and the implications that that has for all New Zealanders and the freedoms that we hold dear. Mr Speaker, in World War I understand that about 10% of New Zealand's population served overseas, 100,000 out of 1 million New Zealanders. Of those, 40,000 were wounded and 18,000 were killed. Sir, over half of the 1 in 10 New Zealanders who served overseas became casualties of that great war. Mr Speaker, when we look around this House, we see names like Messines or Egypt or El Alamein or Gallipoli, and we are reminded that the freedoms that we enjoy today have been paid for by the price of the blood of earlier generations of New Zealanders. We who stand or sit here in relative security and comfort can have no idea of the sacrifices that they made and the hardships that they endured. But we can have pride, for example, that when the tide turned at El Alamein, it was the Kiwis and the Aussies that were in the front line of that breakout. We have always punched above our weight as international citizens, and we are not cowards. And the Labour opposition is not calling for proper constitutional safeguards because we are scared to play our part in constructive international citizenship. Nor are we saying, sir, that New Zealand citizens do not deserve the protection of proper, legally authorised and capable intelligence agencies. Mr Speaker, the three questions that we must address ourselves to in this debate are: how did the vacancy occur that the Honourable Tony Ryle is now being called upon to fill? What are the key challenges of that role and how are they changing? And what changes are required to the security apparatus to keep up to date with the changes around the world? Now, sir, let me first address the first of those issues. Obviously, as others have said, this vacancy has arisen. Mr Ryle has been called forward because the Honourable Peter Dunn is no longer asked to serve on it. It is not, as the Prime Minister has said to the public and to this House, because there is any legal reason that he's no longer a minister, he cannot serve. The Prime Minister, sir, lied to the public. And that is material, sir, because the entire intelligence apparatus, at the end of the day, the public confidence rests upon the confidence in the word of the Prime Minister, who is the head of this committee, and the public's trust in the political independence and neutrality of that apparatus. And, sir, today, as in no time that I can remember since Rob Muldoon used the intelligence agencies to spy on Colin Moyle, have I been more concerned about the political neutrality of this important institution. John Key is the new Muldoon. This is the new Colin Moyle scandal, and this, sir, has to stop. Mr Speaker, Peter Dunn may or may not have leaked the Kitteridge report ahead of time. He has not been able to satisfy the Prime Minister that he did not, and the Prime Minister is entitled to sack him or ask for his resignation as a result. That is not in dispute. What may be in dispute is that another Member of Parliament may have had access to copies, he says, of the self-same emails and text messages. If so, and the Prime Minister disputes it, I ask how that could have occurred. If his communications as an individual or as a minister were secure in this complex, how could another Member of Parliament have received copies of them? And Mr Speaker, I would go so far as to say that the stability of this government is being called into question because there is a minister who has lost his portfolio and may yet lose his seat if the Privileges Committee were to find against him, or if the police were to find against him in a prosecution with a sentence of over 2 years. And the stability of the government would be under threat because another John Key appointment on this very committee is John Banks. And the public won't forget that Mr. Banks is under the gun because he somehow forgot that he accepted thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in donations from one Kim.com. And Kim.com was the person that the GCSB was allegedly illegally spying on in the first place that gave rise to the Kitteridge report. What a terrible closed circle of dysfunction. And in trying to sort out the .com mess, another National Party prop may have leaked the very report that was supposed to tidy it up. And the government's majority, sir, hangs by a thread that may be called Peter Dunn, may be called John Banks, may be called perhaps Winston Peters or Tariana Turia. So New Zealanders must be under no doubt about the gravity of these issues. And John Key says, trust me. Well, do you know what the former head of intelligence and security said about the Prime Minister? Sir Bruce Ferguson, he said, he must be smoking dope for linking the failings in the Bureau to the deep defence and intelligence background of its former overseers. The former head of the agency has said the Prime Minister has been blowing smoke because he appointed an old school friend instead of following a vital constitutional tradition of political impartiality. It is not okay to ring up your old school friend and tell him to apply for a job that you happen to be responsible for and reject every other candidate put forward by the State Services Commission and the intelligence agencies in favour of your mate. Why does that matter? Because the freedoms of New Zealanders paid for at El Alamein matter. And if I am angry, sir, it is because I feel we are dishonouring them. And New Zealanders may not appreciate the seriousness of this issue, but here is why it does matter. And I bring the House to the second of my two key points. Mr. Speaker, this week, a commissioner of the European Commission wrote to the United States Secretary of Justice and said that she was raising serious concern that the American intelligence agencies are, quote, accessing and processing on a large scale the data of EU citizens using major US online service providers which have grave consequences for the fundamental rights of EU citizens, and asked the following questions of the US Secretary of Justice. Are PRISM and other similar programs aimed only at the data of US citizens? And for New Zealanders, just to be clear, these computers pick up every email, every text, every Facebook post, every time you access the internet, they record every single time the trails that could identify those communications. Now, that may not be wrong. The world is a dangerous place and we need to be proof from legitimate threats. We don't want terrorists or foreign powers taking down our electricity system or our hospital systems or our buildings. But they can only be right if they are protected by the law and the rule of law and the dispassionate, apolitical, demonstrably transparent oversight of the intelligence community. And it is that tradition which is under the gravest threat today than it has been under since Rob Muldoon jacked up the resignation of Colin Moyle using the SIS. And I say to New Zealanders, the time has come to be very, very concerned about the progressive erosion of your freedoms and civil liberties by this national government. Nobody now trusts John Key. Nobody trusts John Key, a man who appointed his school friend to run the spy shop, then lied about it, a man who lied about how he was required to sack Peter Dunn off this committee, and who knows what else he's lying about. And I challenge Mr. Speaker.
Point of order.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order to McIndoe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That member knows that he cannot accuse anyone in this House of lying.
Yes, I just asked the member to be very careful. He has 11 seconds left.
Mr. Speaker, I challenge the government to assure New Zealanders that the spy agencies are not accessing the data of other international counterparts to spy on New Zealand citizens in circumvention of legal warrant requirements, and to have that requirement written into the GCS bill that they're bringing to this House. Mr. Speaker, I require them to assure us that they will implement every recommendation of the Kitteridge report and do so forthwith.
Members, this debate is concluded. The question is that the amendment in the name of Brendan Horan be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. The question is that the order... I'm putting a vote. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. A party vote's called for. I'll ask the clerk for a party vote.
New Zealand National.
59 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
30 votes abstained.
Order.
Green Party.
14 votes abstain.
New Zealand First.
7 votes abstained.
Māori Party.
2 votes in favour.
Mana.
1 vote opposed.
Act New Zealand.
1 in favour.
United Future.
1 in favour.
Brendan Horan.
1 vote in favour.
Any other votes?
Oh, sorry, can I correct that?
Yes.
Horan was 1 vote abstain. Sorry.
Members, the ayes are 63, the noes are 1 and abstentions are 52. The motion is agreed to. Call on Government Order of the Day number 3.
Immigration Amendment Bill